So in some situations and circumstances, a tenant may request that they have a cosigner sign the lease or a guarantor. So in a cosigner situation, say a parent or a guardian also signs the lease and is responsible for that lease payment along with the tenant that's living there. So that could be maybe, for example, their child's living in the apartment. They also co-sign the lease, and as a way of saying, like, we're going to make sure that, if there's ever a problem with where my child can't pay the rent, I'm going to pay it, and I'm also financially responsible. There's also something called a guarantor, where the parent or guardian or somebody else guarantees the rent for the lease. So they basically say, like, no matter what happens to the tenant, if the tenant loses their job, if they decide to break the lease, etc., I am personally liable for the lease. And they would have to sign this guarantor form, and the landlord has to agree to have a cosigner, and they would have to agree to have a guarantor on the lease. And if they do agree, there would be a guarantor agreement, and I'll link this down below, that would go with the lease agreement, at which point the landlord, the tenant, and the guarantor of the lease will sign it, and it will state that the guarantor is liable for the tenant's obligations. So sometimes this does come up, especially with tenants who may not have a rental history, or tenants who recently, say, graduated from college, who are looking to rent an apartment. They have no history of income. They have no previous landlord. They may have lived at home for 18, 20 years. So there's no other landlord reference. But the guarantor has income that would cover the rent. The guarantor has credit that is acceptable to the landlord. In that case, and if they agree to it, a guarantor agreement would have to be drafted that will go with the lease agreement. So I'll link this down below so you have a copy of it. If you have any questions about this, you can reach out to me at 347-448-3766 or Walter at livingonthehudson.com. Thank you.